Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to the Sunflower Foundation Strengthening Our Sector Capacity Building Grant Opportunity webinar. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to pop into our friendly Zoom room. It is the last day of summer. If you're a repeat customer from Tuesday, I was in error then. The fall equinox is tomorrow, 1:50 a.m. to be exact. So enjoy this last beautiful day of summer. We've got rain in Northeast Kansas, which we are enjoying tremendously. And I hope wherever you are joining us across the state that you've either had the rain or it's headed your way, because it is a blessing to have. All right, good morning again. We will officially get started now. Strengthening our sector. This is a grant opportunity that Sunflower Foundation is delighted to have. A few of the folks that will be talking today, if we can take a look at the next slide, please, to walk you through this request for proposals opportunity. I'm Elizabeth Berger, Vice President of Healthy Communities here at Sunflower. We also have Brandon Skidmore, Vice President of Health Systems, Kelly Mark, our grant manager, and we call her the Queen of Flux, the online grant management system, and Gabby Talavera, our program associate, running the webinar, and will be walking you through most of the RFP. All right, next slide. See, we're moving on quickly, folks. Sunflower Foundation, as many of you might know already, we are a statewide health philanthropy. We serve all 105 counties in Kansas, as well as our 4 sovereign native nations. Our mission is to serve as a catalyst to improve the health and well-being of all Kansans. If you've worked with us before, you know we have some key priority areas from our sunflower trails, connections to nature and the outdoors, and what that does for our health, our work across the health systems, public health, mental health, behavioral health, nutrition access, food as medicine. But another core area we might not talk about as much is capacity building. We've been doing it since 2002. That was our first one. We've had a couple of decades of experience in this work, and we are delighted to be able to continue it in the fall of 2023. We have very proudly partnered with more than 330 capacity building grantees over the years, with about 12 million in funding. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Gabby, and she is going to walk you through the RFP. Quick housekeeping. Sorry, Gabby, I forgot to remind people. If you have a question, please put it in the question box or in the chat box. And if you're in the chat box right now, we'd love to know who's joining us. So if you don't mind sharing your organization and what part of the state you hail from, that would be fantastic. All right, Gabby, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth, for that background information and for the housekeeping. I'll just go ahead and dive right into things. So what does it mean when we say capacity building? Well, here at Sunflower, we say that it refers to the principle that capacity is the infrastructure that allows an organization to fulfill its mission and strengthen its impact. I'm sure for many of you, this isn't your first time applying for a grant, so you may know that this is quickly becoming a quote-unquote gold standard in the philanthropy industry. But the goal really is to strengthen nonprofits so that they're better equipped to carry out their services. So typically it funds things like technology upgrades, improvements for communications, administrative support, etc. So specifically speaking about our grant opportunity, our goal with this funding is to really just improve the capacity of nonprofits serving Kansans and their ability to routinely meet their goals, sustain day-to-day operations, mobilize partners, enhance systems, secure additional resources, grow influence, and increase their visibility. And that may sound really general right now, and you may be wondering, well, what can we actually spend our funding on? And I promise that's going to be addressed. But this type of capacity building funding is what we call core operating support, which we define as the working capital that nonprofits need to function and execute their mission. And at the end of the day, you all are the expert when it comes to the issues that you're addressing at your organizations. So really, you should be the one in charge of deciding how to ultimately spend the dollars. I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Brandon so he can overview with you all what the funding can be spent on and how that kind of links to what we like to see as deliverables.
All right, thanks, Gabby, and welcome again to all of you joining us. We appreciate your time this morning. So as Gabby said, the primary vehicle for getting money to grantees through this opportunity will be core operating support. The hallmark of core operating support is that it provides tremendous flexibility to grantees. And so in this case, for example, we're not even asking you to develop a budget for this particular RFP. If you are awarded the funds, you would be awarded the amount that you had requested, and you can allocate those dollars within your programs or your broader budget, however you wish to. So some of the opportunities or examples that we've listed here at the first bullet maybe would be talking about spending dollars to help you enhance your business functions, improve your communications, strengthen your workforce or team culture, diversify your revenue streams, or it could be as simple as just supporting your day-to-day operations. Another way of thinking about this opportunity is really oil for the engine. So it's the basic things that make your organization function on a day-to-day basis. The important thing to think about here, though, is not so much how the dollars will be spent, but really about how we're going to ask you to report on the work that you're doing over the next 12 months if you're awarded this opportunity. And really, while you can spend the dollars however you wish, the reporting is all going to be based on your movement as an organization to think about your own capacity, the challenges that you have in the capacity space, and what are some of the solutions that you're identifying to really move your organization to the next level or to better meet your mission as an organization and the individuals or organizations or communities that you serve. So that's the important delineation that we want to lay out here, is that you can choose to spend the dollars however you would like to spend those dollars, but what we're going to be asking you about at your progress reporting time, at your final reporting time, is all about capacity and how as an organization you're moving to address those capacity needs. So if you decide you need to spend some of these dollars to directly enhance your capacity, that's great. If you decide that you can enhance capacity in other ways and you're going to spend these dollars on other things, that's fine as well. Just know that all of the reporting is going to be based on those capacity building needs and how you're making improvements in those spaces. So the other thing that this funding allows, as we keep bringing back to the term flexibility. So for example, if you're awarded these funds, because you don't necessarily have to be spending dollars on day one, it gives you some time to maybe reflect more deeply with your internal team. So you might take 5 or 6 weeks in the beginning and sit down and really work as a team to figure out, where would we like to put these dollars? Where would it most enhance our ability to kind of move to that next level as an organization and address some of our internal needs, those things that you don't always get the opportunity to address as a nonprofit that's really working on a daily basis just to meet the needs of those that you're serving. So we hope that this flexibility is not only flexibility in terms of time, but flexibility in terms of how you spend money as well. So you'll see at the bottom there are a few things that we cannot spend money on, and those are pretty basic in the philanthropy world, things like capital costs around construction and renovation, or fundraising campaigns directly, medical equipment, routine continuing education for licensures or accreditation, or individual healthcare support. So pretty minimal in the things that you can't spend on. So that it's pretty wide open in terms of how you choose to use these dollars. In addition to providing the dollars, we also want to take the opportunity to provide some opportunities for nonprofits to come together and learn. And so Gabby will be talking a little bit later here about the learning collaborative opportunity community, where we will be asking you, the grantees, to talk about what are some of the high-level needs that you have in capacity building. And then we're going to take that information and see how we can make that work for you in terms of creating some more specific and targeted learning events. So with that, I'll turn it back to Gabby.
Okay, thanks, Brandon, for that overview. Just another quick housekeeping reminder. Please feel free to drop questions either in the chat or the Q&A. We will have time at the end to address those, so feel free to do that. And we will also have a recording of this webinar as well as the slides posted to our website later today. Okay, let's get back. We are going to dive straight into the nitty-gritty details of the grant. So grant awards have a maximum cap of $25,000. This doesn't mean that you have to request the full $25,000, but please, if that's what you need, by all means do so. Of course, this is a competitive process, and as much as we'd want to fund every single one of your proposals, we can't. So unfortunately, that means not every qualifying and deserving proposal can be funded at the end of the day. Once grants are awarded, we do expect that they be completed approximately within 1 year from the date of the award, with funding announcements in late December and leaving some time in January for signing letters of agreement. We do currently expect that grants will begin sometime in February of 2024. As for reporting, a progress report, which will most likely be in the midway point of the grant, and a final report will be required. As we're not requiring a budget for this grant, no financial report is going to be necessary, although there might be a question on either the progress or final report as to how the funds have been spent thus far. We do have an online grants management system called Flex, and Kelly is going to go over Flex with you later on in the presentation for the registration and application process. So applications can be submitted either online via Flex, or reports can be submitted online via Flex, or we also often offer narrative reports in the form of virtual check-ins with the programming staff. All right, moving on to learning collaboratives. Beyond the dollars, one of Sunflower's staples in grant making are our learning collaboratives. They're typically hosted at our nonprofit center in Topeka, Kansas, which you can see on the bottom right of the screen. Grantees will be able to attend learning collaboratives alongside other nonprofit leaders from Kansas and learn from local and national experts in capacity building activities. Ultimately, the topics, like Brandon said, are going to be decided by you all, the grantees. We really hope to identify some common priority areas among the cohort so that everyone will have the opportunity at the end of the day to take home what they learned and apply it at their own organizations. Okay, moving on to who should apply. I'm sure many of you have questions about eligibility. So please know that this funding is directed at supporting organizations who, 1, prioritize collaboration, and 2, work to address critical health and/or social issues, as well as enhancing local systems of care. We have received a lot of questions about whether or not this means you have to be in the medical field, and the answer is no. You certainly can be in the medical field, but at Sunflower, we really look at health holistically, and so we know that kind of goes hand in hand with those human services and those social determinants of health. I do want to add here that due to the broad nature of this RFP, we're a bit hesitant to confirm one-on-one whether your organization is eligible or not. So I just want to say that if you feel like you can make a compelling case in your application about how your organization improves the health of Kansans and how you can use the funding to improve your capacity and infrastructure, then we really do encourage you to apply. We do also have some criteria that your organization must meet. You must have a tax-exempt status under Section 501c3 or be an instrumentality of state or local government. And I do have one caveat here. If you are an instrumentality of state or local government, we do require that this funding not supplant something that would be considered one of your core responsibilities. And of course, we require that organizations embrace diversity and inclusion across all dimensions. Okay, now, what does a successful application look like? So at this point, you might have an idea or not, or whether you're eligible. And so let's say you're going to apply and you want to put your best application forward. We do have some tips for you. First of all is to be genuine. We truly want to hear about the obstacles that you're facing so that we can be as best of a partner as possible. I know it can be kind of intimidating talking about your weaknesses and some hurdles that you've yet to overcome. But the purpose of this funding really is to fill those gaps. And without knowing what they are, we wouldn't be able to offer much support. Second is to be personal, write in your own words and use your own data. Don't feel pressured to use fancy language or academic jargon, as well as focus on local data. We really want to learn more about your community and the population you serve and what their needs are. And finally is to be ready to reflect before and during the application process. We recommend meeting internally with your team at your organization and conducting a quote unquote self-check. What challenges have you faced in the past year? What can be improved? And how can you leverage this funding to achieve those improvements? So we have gone over quite a bit of information. So here are some recommended next steps. First of all is to read through the RFP in its entirety and reach out to us if you have any questions. Second is to conduct, like I said, a self-assessment with your team members to identify those priority areas for funding. And by all means, please use the application questions found in the RFP and the application to really guide that discussion. Third is to register in our grants management system, Flux. And like I said, Kelly will be giving a demonstration as to how to do that. 4 is an important one, to complete and submit the application by 5 p.m. Central Time on October 19th, 2023. So we're a little under a month out. Technical assistance will be available until 4 p.m. that day if needed. If you're having some issues with Flux, Kelly will be available to help. And then finally, wait for funding announcements, which will be made on or before December 22nd of this year. So before we go into questions, I'm going to go ahead and toss this over to Kelly, who's going to guide you through the registration and application process on Flux.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabby. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Mark. I'm the Grant and Finance Manager here at the Sunflower Foundation. And I am going to share my screen and we're just going to do a live walkthrough of how you find Flux, how you get registered, and how you start your application. All right, Gabby, are you seeing the sunflower? All right, perfect. I'm on the right screen. Okay, the first place that I went to is our Sunflower Foundation website. You can see the address there is sunflowerfoundation.org. And this is how you're going to be able to get to Flux as well as find information on the RFP. As Gabby said, please read the RFP, and the application questions are word for word located in the RFP. So I'm going to show you how to find that. So we've got these little choices right here. And if you click on the How We Work tab, that is going to take you to an information page that talks about our current grant opportunities. So this 2023 capacity building grants, this is what we're talking about right now. And if you click on this Learn More, you will be able to get to the actual RFP and see the application questions and all the details we've talked about. There's a login for Flux here. I'll show you another way to get there, but there is one on this page as well. We've got some resource guides for you, talks about our grant making process. We've got a PDF technical assistance guide for Flux if you prefer to download that and have some written instructions in front of you. I've got some videos recorded here on how you use Flux. And then we've got a infographic about our grant process there if you'd like to check that out. Okay, so you can log into Flux here, or also at the top, we've got a grantee login button. And you can see when you hover over that, we've got our Sunflower portal first, and our Kansas Fights Addiction portal is located there as well. For these grants, you're going to go to our Sunflower portal. So I'm going to click on that. And this takes me to the registration login page for Flux. So if you are a current Sunflower grantee or you have had a Sunflower grant in the past, you still have a username and a password. You're going to sign in right here. Usernames are usually your business email of the organization when you applied to Sunflower in the past. And if you forgot your password, you can just, set a new one right here. If you are brand new, if you've never had a Sunflower grant in the past, you're going to create an account right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this so you can see where that takes us. So brand new, click on create an account now. And that takes us to the Sunflower registration page. So you're going to get asked for primary contact information. This is the individual that's going to serve as the primary contact person for the grant. So put your information in there. And then organization name. So this is information on the applicant organization. There is a tax ID box that is extremely important. That is a required field. So make sure you fill that out. And after you have all of your information filled out, you are going to hit submit request. I'm not going to do that because I don't have any information filled out. But once you hit that submit a request button, you're going to get this Flux icon is going to pop up on your screen, and it's going to say, thanks for your submission. We'll get back to you in a few days. You will get an email from Flux that has your username and has a token link for you to set your password. If you do not get an email, just reach out to me by email. Gabby has all of her contact information on the slides. It's also on the website, and I'll help you get logged in. If you maybe made a mistake putting your email address in or something like that, you may not get the email, but any problems, just reach out to me by email and we'll get it fixed for you. Okay, so you filled out the registration form. You've gotten your email that says, hey, here's your username. You set your password. You are going to enter that information right here in the login box, your username, your password, and then you're going to click sign in. That is going to take you to our grantee portal, which is right here. So the first place you go when you click on the grantee portal, of course, you can also find those Flux technical assistance resources here. So the video, the downloadable guide, you can get access to all of that. But the first place you want to go is the start an application button. If you click on that, you see a little bit of information about the RFP. And then this big green button down here is how you're going to open your first application. So you click on that and the application is going to open for you. It opens automatically in edit mode so that you can go ahead and enter right in this form. So we've got a little bit of, who's your primary contact going to be? Primary signatory and financial contact, you're not going to have anybody in your drop down unless you're a current Sunflower grantee. If you are a current or past Sunflower grantee, you'll be able to pick names from that. But if you're brand new, only the primary contact will be located there. So you just say, yes, I want to update this information. And then you can put your primary signatory and your financial contact and their email address in this box, and I'll get them added to Flux for you so that they're there for you to pick for your drop down. All the application questions are down here. I did see a question in the chat already about if there is a word or a page limit. Since this is an online form, you are only limited to the amount of characters that you can put in this text field in Flux. It's fairly large. I want to say maybe 1,000 words or so, but you will reach an end where you can't type in that box anymore. So that's your limit. Okay, so you're going to go through here and you're going to answer all these questions. We do recommend that you get the questions out of the RFP first, or you can print this application before you fill it out so you have something to work from. Fill out those questions in a Word document, and then you can copy and paste right into Flux. I do want to stress that Flux does not autosave. So if you are typing along, please hit save along the way. If your internet access gets interrupted, if you leave for too long and it times you out, if you did not save, everything you put in there is going to be gone because it does not auto save. But as long as you're hitting save pretty regularly, you can come in and out of that application with no problem. All right, so we're going on down the application. Grantee project documents. These are going to be the documents that we need you to upload with your application. This little green plus sign right here is how you're going to upload documents. You click on it, it opens this upload field box. When you click on add files, it opens your task manager for your PC. You pick which field that you, or which file you want to upload. And then you click the start upload button. It will show you when it's done, and it'll say upload successfully. Click this little X, and then whatever you uploaded will show up right here as a link so that you can see it. What are we asking you to upload? Well, no budget. We already said you don't need a budget for this opportunity, so that's awesome. But we do need a few things. The first is your most recent financial audit or a working link to your audit online. Now, not everybody is going to have an audit. That's why we said if applicable. If you are under the revenue cutoff for the state of Kansas, which is $500,000, if you're under that, you are not required to have an audit. And of course, we understand that. So just let us know. If you are over that $500,000 revenue per year and you don't attach an audit, I will reach out to you and ask you for it. So if you're a brand new organization and you just haven't gotten it done yet, that's okay. When I reach out and ask you for it, we'll deal with that on a one-on-one basis. But if you have an audit, we would like you to upload that. Second is current financial statement. So we'd like these to be within the last 6 months. That's what current means to us. And we need that to be an income statement, which is also a statement of activities or a profit and loss statement. And then we also need a current balance sheet, which is that statement of financial position. And then we also need your most recent IRS Form 990. Include all pages of that, please. If you do not file a 990, if you're a government agency or something like that, a W-9 will work for that requirement. If you do a 990 EZ or 990T, you could just upload your postcard. That's okay with us as well. If you have any questions about any of those documents that we'd like you to upload, just reach out to me by email. We can work through it. They are required documents. So if you just don't upload something, you're going to get an error message when you try to submit, and it won't let you go forward until you upload the documents. All right, I'm going to show you kind of what an error message looks like. So you're done. You filled everything out. And you think you're ready to submit, you're going to hit save and close. And this is how you exit out of your application. Even if you're not done, you can always come back in. Save and close. And then you're going to get this green submit button down here. You can tell your application's not in edit mode anymore because you have a submit button. And then you can pop back into edit mode right up here in the upper right-hand corner with that edit button. And then here's your print icon if you want to print that application. So I'm going to hit submit, and I've got some fields I haven't filled out. So it's going to give me an error message, and it's not going to let me do that. See up here, unable to promote. We found these errors. The amount requested can't be blank. Your project summary can't be blank. It'll tell you what's wrong. You'll be able to jump to your errors with these little links here, and it highlights in red what needs to be filled out. So your mission statement can't be blank. That was the project summary it was talking about. That's this mission statement field. Jump to the next error, amount requested. That can't be blank. So it's going to tell you where your errors are. You're going to go fill that stuff out. You're going to save it, and then you can come back and submit. Once you do submit, you'll be able to tell that your application was submitted because you'll see it advance. And I'll show you what that looks like here. On the left-hand side here, this is all of your action buttons. A new request, a new application is going to show up under pending requests. You can tell that I've made changes to my new application because I've got a little orange one there. And right now in this test environment, I have 3 open applications pending requests. If I click on that, these are my 3 open applications that I have. You will have 1 open application, so it should be pretty easy for you to find, but it's under pending requests. So if you click on that application, when the face opens up, here you are right here. You can jump in there and edit it. You can print it out. You can do whatever you like. And your submit button is down there as well because it's not in edit mode right now. It's in read only mode. Once you submit your application, it is going to disappear from this pending requests and it is going to populate in submitted requests. So you will have, if you have a number 1 next to pending requests for your 1 application and then you submit it, that 1 will disappear and a 1 will show up next to submitted requests. So you can see here, I have a request that is submitted now. We've got some updates for you here in the state. These will change as your application goes through the grant process. So that'll keep you updated a little bit. We're going to quickly go through some of the other buttons that if you are a grantee or you become a grantee, you're going to use these buttons through the life cycle of your grant. So if you're a previous Sunflower grantee, you'll be able to see all your closed grants there. If you're a current Sunflower grantee, you'll be able to see your active grants here. So if your application is successful and you are funded, it will move from submitted requests to active grants. And that's how you'll be able to get to that grant. The reports that Brandon and Gabby talked about, that progress report and that final report, you'll be able to find under the reports due. And that is how you're going to enter those reports into the system. You'll have a little number 1 next to this. Your report will open up and you'll enter into the form just like you do a grant application. You'll be able to see the reports that you've submitted, and you'll be able to see when your payments are scheduled and when your payments have been paid. So that is pretty much it for Flux. If you do have any questions, if you have any trouble finding your application, logging in, feel free to reach out to me by email. I'm here for you. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to get out of Flux, how to sign out. So this little gear down here at the very bottom, you can change your password here and you can also log out of the system. And that will take you just back to the registration page. So that is it for me. I'm going to turn it back over to Gabby, and I think we're ready for your questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly, for that overview. Yeah, so let's go ahead and dive into questions. I am going to go through them in order, starting from the earliest questions and making our way down. So first up, we have a question. Can you elaborate on the difference between fundraising/donor development versus fundraising campaigns for the purpose of this grant opportunity?
Sure, I'll take this one. And before I do, reaching out to us, you'll notice we have our email addresses up there. Email is definitely the best way to reach out to us. And we prefer, if it's a programming question, go ahead and email myself, Brandon, and Gabby all at once. So we're all on the same email chain. The email helps us document responses. It's a way to maintain transparency, make sure we're giving the same response to all the applicants. No one has an unfair advantage. If there are issues brought up in the email that require a phone call, or you would just really like to have a chat, go ahead and reach out to us through email to schedule that. If you try to call our office, chances are we'll be out. You might get lost in the phone labyrinth. And again, we just really like to all be on the responses, so it's as fair as possible. Okay, I really wasn't trying to delay answering the question. It's a really good question, so thank you for asking it. So the funds cannot be used to, say, put on a fundraising event. But we know fundraising events are important for nonprofits as a way to increase revenue. The funds can be used to get assistance, say, from a consultant, or go to a workshop, or just to have more time in planning about how to diversify your revenue streams, which could include in the future putting on certain types of fundraising events. It's about developing the plan to diversify your revenue. That's what the funds can be used for, that staff time to develop it, the consultation, the TA, but not for a fundraising event itself. If that didn't answer your question, repeat it in the chat box and I'll try to explicate more.
Next, we have an organization that has been asked to write a book about the gaps in mental health services and challenges to accessing mental health care in rural Kansas. It's estimated that the cost for travel and interviews, etc., will be about $2,500 per month. What a coincidence. Is this capacity building related?
So I'll take a stab at this one. So these are the questions that are pretty specific to you as an organization. So it's hard for us to answer whether or not that's capacity building for you. That's something that I think that you would have to outline in your application and connect those dots for the reviewers that would be looking at that application. Also remember that while you can spend your dollars on things that are of need to your organization, all of your reporting, everything that we're going to ask and talk to you about will be related to your capacity building efforts as an organization. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about how you're spending these dollars. Maybe they're not directly related at times to direct capacity building, but all of what we're going to be talking to you about will be related to capacity building. So you need to leave some time and bandwidth to be working on and thinking about that as an organization. In terms of how you're spending your dollars, making that connection point in your application will be helpful. So not an answer that tells you yes or no, that's directly capacity building as we see it, but more an answer that's saying, as an organization, think about how you're outlining your application and your capacity needs and connecting the dots between maybe how you're spending money and some of the other internal things that you're doing around capacity.
I'll just add a little bit more. In reviewing these grants, it's not going to just be the Sunflower team. We will have a pretty extensive external review board, and they will understand this RFP inside and out as well. And so when that's why it's really hard for us to say, yeah, you should definitely apply, or no, you shouldn't, because it's not going to be just our opinions. It will be an external review board, but you will really need to explicate very explicitly in the application about how the activities you propose doing. You need to draw that line, as Brandon said, make that connection between the activities you want to do with the money, how a year or 2 years from now, that will have strengthened some of the structural components of your organization itself.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon and Elizabeth. I've got a couple of questions I'm going to toss to Kelly. First, is there a way to download the application to complete the work before starting to complete online?
Yeah, as I said in the beginning, the actual application questions are located in that RFP document itself. So if you go to our website and you print out that RFP document, you'll have the questions. You can also, in the grantee portal, you can print that application. So if you print it to PDF, you can have yourself a PDF copy of the application, or you can just print it out and you'll have the application. So 2 ways that you can get those application questions.
Perfect. Next, we will need a Flux account to apply, correct?
Yes, you will have to register in Flux to be able to get to that application. So go to that registration page, sign up with the Create an Account Now button, get your username emailed to you, and then log in so you can get to that grantee portal.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Next, can this grant be used to fund a portion of a regional conference?
I'll jump in on this one. So pretty much a repeat of our answer just now in terms of how you're spending the dollars and how you're connecting it back to your long-term capacity needs as an organization. So I think the best way is to kind of just remember the framing of the RFP in terms of kind of what the focus is, which is capacity building for your internal organization. Using these dollars to really augment and build out your capacity as an organization to better serve your communities, better serve the individuals that you serve. So that's kind of, I think, an important point to keep in the back of your mind. If you can make those connections, then by all means, that's something that we encourage you to include in your application. So it really comes down to kind of just what you choose to put on paper and those connection points that you make and how clear they are for, as Elizabeth indicated, most reviewers who are going to be coming to your application probably not being familiar with your organization at all. So what they're learning is exactly what you've put on paper in terms of the application itself.
Great. A couple of questions about audits. Can you apply for a grant if you don't have audited financials?
You can apply for a grant if you don't have audited financials. The limit in the state of Kansas is you have to have over $500,000 in revenue in order to legally have to have an audit. So if you're less than that, you're not required to have an audit, and we'll know that because I'll be looking at your financial statements. If you are required to have an audit, yes, I want it to be there, and I'll reach out to you and ask for it if I know you need to have one and it's not there. There is some circumstances where you may have just not had one done yet because you're a brand new organization and you just crossed over that $500,000 threshold. We'll work through all that stuff. So it's an individual basis there. We do need financial statements though. If you don't have an audit, or if you do have an audit, we need that balance sheet and that income statement.
This is a similar question. You might have answered this in your answer, but we didn't have an audit last year, but we had a review. Do you want our review documents uploaded?
That would be great. You can put those in the audit spot.
Awesome. We have two questions from the same individual. We have a client that has a brand new 501c3 designation. They've been operating for years, but recently formalized. They will not have a 990 or an audit as of yet. That will happen after the close of this year. Is that going to be a concern? They have balance sheets and records of income and expenses.
Yeah, as long as you upload your balance sheet and your income statement, and then you can, instead of a 990, if you haven't gotten one yet, you can upload your IRS determination letter. That would work for that requirement.
Awesome. They also say, I will be filing grants on behalf of multiple clients. Will I be able to do so under one login?
That's a tricky one. Your login is tied to your organization by an organization card, and you're not going to be able to fill out that registration form unless you fill out a registration form for each organization. So I guess that's the way you'd have to do it. You're going to have to fill out a new registration form for each organization that you're working with. And you'll be connected to all of those. So when you log into the grantee portal, I didn't show you this, but up at the top of that left-hand sidebar, there's a drop down of your organizations. You'll have to open that drop down and pick which organization you're working on because they'll all be listed there for you. So register separately for each one, and then you'll have a drop down at the top to pick, and just, I guess, be careful picking the right organizations.
I would add conceptually, or if each organization can also be on that login, or perhaps you could walk them through registering themselves. It's not just a technical thing, it's a capacity building thing. Any young nonprofit is probably going to need to seek grants to stay alive, not just through Sunflower, but others. And we try to make our application and reporting process as simple as possible. So it's really good baby steps for a very young or inexperienced nonprofit to apply through us, we feel. And, once they do that, maybe they'll have more confidence to apply to others. So we would, and this is definitely an application that does not require a professional grant writer. Not saying it can't be used or can't be done, by no means, but it should not. And we would really prefer that applications be written by the nonprofit themselves. We want to hear their story and what their needs are.
Okay, thank you both. And thanks to everyone in the audience as we work our way through all the questions. The next one, our organization main address is in Kansas City, Missouri, but we serve 6 counties in Kansas and are hoping to build our capacity specifically in Kansas. Will that affect our eligibility?
So no, you can apply. You just have to be very clear on how the dollars will be used to support Kansas activities. So in this case, since this is a capacity building grant, you're going to really have to talk about your capacity as an organization to serve these Kansas counties, and kind of get into a little bit more about the percentage of time that your organization spends supporting Kansas activities. So you'll have to delineate that for the reviewers so that they can clearly see that you're supporting the work in Kansas, and really what percent of your overall work that you're doing as an organization is actually being performed in Kansas for Kansans.
Okay, moving on. How many grants do you anticipate funding?
So that's a great question. We don't enter into the process with a magic number. As we indicated, we have a primarily external review team that goes through the review process. They then create a set of recommendations on which organizations best meet the criteria of the RFP in terms of their applications. Those recommendations then go to our board of trustees. Our trustees then decide which and how many of those organizations they will approve for funding. I will say, if we're just kind of looking at, averages over the past several years, since we have done capacity building for a long time now, typically we would fund anywhere from, 35 to 50 applications in an RFP like this.
Gabby, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in with not to tag on to that, but there's a lot of questions coming in about, can we buy food for a food pantry? Can we buy a van to transport food to a food pantry, etc. I apologize that we sound like broken records, or we're trying to hedge our response, but it's really, again, it goes back to, in the application, can you tie how what you plan to do with the funds to increased capacity of the applicant nonprofit a year or 2 years down the road? If you are able to make a case that spending this amount on food 1 month will lead to these desired strengthened structural components of a nonprofit a year later, then make that case. Again, we're not trying to be coy or hedge the questions. It's just, it just really goes back to the case you're going to be able to make in the application on what you intend to spend the money on. We realize this is very, very broad, and we're putting a lot of trust and faith in our partners on the ground, the nonprofits, to explain to us how, if they use the money on ABC, they're going to get X, Y, and Z and increase capacity down the road. So if we don't get to every exact question about, can we use some money on this and that, that's kind of the blanket response. Thanks, Gabby. You may now return to your regularly scheduled life. No.
Thanks. Will you expand on the preference to fund organizations who have been historically overlooked by other grant opportunities due to a lack of capacity and or reduced access to resources or connections?
I'll start on the answer and then let Brandon add anything I may have forgotten. We really see this RFP as a way to partner with perhaps smaller nonprofits that are doing really important, critical work on the ground, but might be so busy doing that work, they've never had a chance to apply for a grant, or very little. They don't even have the capacity to do a lot of grant writing or fundraising. These are often organizations that, because they are so small, or the communities that they serve, whether it be urban, rural, suburban, the particular populations, maybe it's very, very grassroots, we would give preference to those over much larger, more well-established nonprofits that, you know, have been around for years, have a fairly regular revenue stream coming in through different ways. Brandon, would you like to elaborate at all?
Sure. So I think that, and Elizabeth talked about this a little bit earlier, but you know, as we talk to the review team that will be looking at this applications, you know, the key piece is diamond in the rough. So we're not expecting this application is really geared to, as Elizabeth said, organizations that don't have professional grant writers. They don't have individuals who are just churning out grants left and right on a daily basis. But it's really an opportunity for the organizations who are just kind of maybe cutting their teeth on grant writing. We're going to take a lot of time to look at what you actually have in the application, not how nice and polished it is, but really the concepts and the connections that you're outlining in the application. So it's really that opportunity to kind of get into, you know, the grant making space. Now, if you're an organization that's refined at doing this, and you have these needs, and you put forward a great application, you're just as eligible as well. But we really want to make a point of speaking to those organizations that maybe haven't received or been in the game as much to get grants. Because this is part of what capacity building is. It's helping organizations grow, and not only kind of what the money can do, but the actual process of applying for grants and going through the system and doing all that it takes to kind of get these things compiled, because we know it's a tremendous lift for you as an organization to put together an application, and we want to kind of honor that time that you're spending, and not just looking at the things that are really shiny that can catch a lot of people's attention sometimes. So I think we want to be intentional about that. Also, when you think back, you know, as we are emerging still from the pandemic, there was just a tremendous amount of money that was flowing to different types of organizations over the last few years through emergency funds. But not all of that money was flowing to every organization that needed it. So that's another thing that I think is important to talk about too, is the fact that some organizations were able to access and tap into those funds, and some organizations were not. And if you were not able to tap into those funds, you know, you emerge from the last few years in a much more, you know, critical state than some other nonprofits. So hopefully that provides a little bit of insight into how we're kind of thinking about that particular point.
Great, thank you. Just because we have only a little bit of time left, I am going to prioritize some more of those general questions that can kind of help everyone out. And if we don't get to some of your more individual organization based questions, please feel free to email us. Are learning collaboratives required, and will they be offered virtually or only in person?
Sorry, Brandon, I was typing a response to, but I'll do a two-fer on this one, Gabby. First, I was answering the question. You can apply if you have an open grant with Sunflower Foundation. Again, keeping in mind what we're looking for, everything to what Brandon just said about them. As far as learning collaboratives, if you read the RFP, one of the things that makes a strong applicant is a willingness to participate in the learning collaboratives, of which there'll be no cost, of course, of that learning collaborative to the grantees. That's not, you know, a hard and fast rule. We would certainly hope that's something a grantee would want to participate in, because we believe they'll be of tremendous value. We would not put our time and resources into developing them if we didn't think so. So It's not a hard and fast rule, but definitely there will be, the ideal candidate will be one that wants to come to the learning collaboratives. And they're not going to be every month. We're talking probably 2, maybe 3 over 18 months,
Awesome.
which
Thanks,
I believe
Elizabeth.
is in the RFP.
Do dollars have to be spent in the grant year period?
So we encourage all of the grant dollars to be liquidated during the grant period. We also know that circumstances arise that require your project to maybe be extended beyond that 12-month period. We're very flexible in working with grantees in terms of their end dates as issues arise. So the basic answer is yes, we would hope that you could get most of those dollars allocated in your 12 months. If you need a little additional time, we're always happy to work with you.
Awesome. Thank you. What is your definition of capacity? For example, income, number of clients, space to serve clients.
So as you saw in the application or the PowerPoint that we went through, we gave you a rough definition of how we look at capacity, but this is really the opportunity for you as an organization to define how you look at capacity. What are your capacity needs as an organization? So again, it's very flexible and open-ended. It's more about how you are making the case for whatever you're laying out to be capacity, why that truly is the case for your organization, and why it connects to this particular RFP. The great thing about this RFP from your perspective as an applicant is it's very specific to you as an organization. You can really customize it. That's also a challenge for us on the review side, because it makes it a very case-by-case basis as we go through these and look at them for review. There's not a cookie cutter approach here to one size fits all in terms of what capacity is. It depends on the type of organization you are, the catchment area that you serve, what it is that you're trying to impact, what your overall mission is, how you allocate dollars on a regular basis to move that mission. So all of those things are unique and specific to your organization, and that's what we would ask you to outline in the application.
So this question is regarding our funding exclusions, specifically individual healthcare or support. What about nonprofits offering integrated care, behavioral, and primary care, seeking support to sustain day-to-day operations of an integrated care model?
Sure, I'll take that one. So absolutely. So when we're talking about, in most of those cases, when you're allocating dollars to support those projects, you're really paying for things like staff time, the time of a provider to be interacting with the patient, your infrastructure to provide integrated care. Really what we're talking about here is not providing a scholarship, if you will, or a stipend to specific patients where they're going out and then receiving health care that's not tied to your organization. So it's really about if you're paying for the infrastructure that delivers care, that's fine. This is really calling out, making sure that you're not necessarily spending money on that type of outreach where you're just providing scholarships or stipends that patients then take in the form of cash or other mechanisms to go receive care.
All right, thanks, Brandon. Finally, this is a Kelly question. If we're planning to partner with an organization, are we both required to register in Flex?
You're not both required to register in Flux. If you're partnering, you're going to do one application together, so one joint application. So whoever is going to be the primary contact is going to be the one that registers and fills that out. And then you can decide who the primary signatory and the primary financial contact is and add that information in. If you're doing 2 separate applications, but you're going to those applications, you're going to partner, but you both want to apply, you can do that as well. Just line that out in your application And in that case, you would fill out separate applications. But if you're truly like, hey, we are doing this together, our capacity building depends on each other, and we have this idea of how we're going to build each other up together as a unit, then just apply as one. But one person has to be the organization, and the other gets talked about as here's how we're partnering with them.
And since we're talking about flux, there was a question that I may have caused some confusion to the person that asked about applying on behalf of multiple organizations, and I indicated it would be best. When you have the flux account, there is one person that opens it, but there can be other people on that account that would be able to access it and see the application. That way, you know, more than one person can work on the application. And what I was suggesting is that for the nonprofit that's applying, someone connected to that nonprofit ideally would be on that account as well. Kelly is the queen of flux. She can walk you through all of this on the technicalities of that. I'll also say really quickly, and I apologize to everyone that we're running a little overtime. There's been a few questions about if you are an organization that is going to use a fiscal sponsor, because perhaps you don't have a 501c3 status, which is absolutely fine. If you have any questions about fiscal sponsors, you're not sure what they are, you need help thinking through that process, reach out to Kelly. But if you have your fiscal sponsor and they do, you'll be using them. If they have more than $500,000 in revenue, then they will be required to have an audit. So it would be the same things as if it was a nonprofit itself with that. Brandon, Kelly, Gabby, any other sort of
I would
general
say it looks like a
questions?
lot of parting questions here are about just can the funds be used to hire or support a staff position? And they can be. Again, it just goes back to kind of making that case as you talk about your capacity as an organization and what that does for you long term. So certainly, since these dollars are flexible, they can support staff time and staffing positions.
And the question about a 501c6 applying for their members instead of them all applying separately. No, I'm not quite sure what the members are, but if it's member organizations, each nonprofit, they need to apply separately. It does need to be a 501c3 or an instrumentality of government. We really appreciate everyone's time and attention. Thank you so much. If we did not get to your specific question, email the three musketeers and give us 24 to 48 hours to get back to you. If you have something about flux, email Kelly. We are excited to see everyone. Happy last day of summer. And thank you again for your time today.
Goodbye.
Thank you.